Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ancient Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Smotley, and today I have Mark Young with me, who is the man behind Zona Plus, and we had a great conversation about the benefits. And you guys, it's like when you guys sent me the device, like I would say, like holding it was a little, after a while, like keeping your
work.
It is. It's very. I don't care what people would say. I was like, it is actually. I could see how it would train you to become comfortable with holding it at the rate that it needs to be held, because I didn't know that there was like a specific range of pressure that your muscles need. So when you say that, and like, you're great at explaining it. Like, I love how you guys talked about like nitric oxide. So without butchering it, like when your body is like going into an isometric contraction, like your body is using nitric oxide in some way to heal your arteries. Is that what you're saying? Like,
so two things really happen when you're doing isometric exercise. So, which I feel like we probably should explain what that even means right now. People are listening. So
love it.
So when we're talking isometric, we're used to thinking of exercise as being a concentric versus an eccentric movement, right? Concentric, eccentric. Concentric meaning I'm contracting a muscle. Eccentric meaning that I'm extending a muscle, right? I'm holding it extended. I'm holding it contracted. So when we think of like a sit-up, my concentric is my up, my eccentric is my down.
Yes.
So when you're doing an isometric, it is, Greek words for equal measurement, right? Isometric. Mm-hmm. It's anything that makes you hold something for a period of time. And if you remember when we were kids, if you did something wrong, the teacher said, you got to put your fist up on the chalkboard and hold it like that.
Yeah.
And that was your punishment. You're like, hold my fist on the chalkboard, whatever. Like, 30 seconds in, you're like, whatever, I could do this all day, right? Minute and a half in, you're like, oh, my arm hurts. Like, it's that same type of thing, right? I say like everybody's a beast at 30 seconds into a plank. 2 minutes into a plank, and it separates the men from the boys.
Yes.
And that's the exact science that goes into this. And it's isometric. It's you're holding this device and it's giving you biofeedback throughout the entire session. And Zona is a very, very controlled way of doing it. So it's not the only way of doing isometric exercises. A nice, well-positioned, good form plank will do a lot of the same things for you, but very different physiological phenomenon in the body, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned nitric oxide, which is the first agent of activation that happens when you're using isometrics or Zona specifically. That is, nitric oxide is a vasodilator.
Yeah.
Right. So when nitric oxide is released from the body, what's ending up happening is it's going to increase vasodilation, which means a constricted blood vessel will widen. And it's usually the body's defense mechanism to something's going on and I need to get more blood there. And, and we say, where blood flows, health goes, right?
Yeah, right.
The idea that if I need more blood in an area, the easiest way to do it is to open the channel.
Yes.
Right? It's letting the water out of the dam. Like, we're going to open the channel up, and that's how the body responds when nitric oxide is produced. But nitric oxide only gets produced when you do some things like nasal breathing. Nitric oxide will be produced through nasal breathing. Nitric oxide is produced in multiple different ways in the body with the foods we eat. We can, eat foods high in nitrates and get natural nitric oxide production as well. All of those things are beneficial and produce this. The interesting thing about when you're working with isometrics and Zona specifically, again, is you're getting the nitric oxide production, but the reason is because there's a nervous system switch that's taking place. If you've ever, I go to the relatable comparison of holding a plank. If you've ever held a plank for 2 minutes, it's about the most unnatural thing you can experience.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculously unnatural thing because every part of your body's natural comfort zone says, just friggin' lay down. Right? Like, why are we doing this? This is ridiculous. But what happens is your nervous system is responding to a very uncomfortable stimulus. And because of that uncomfortable stimulus, it assumes there's danger. And the sympathetic nervous system response is what releases the nitric oxide. You can be the calmest person in town, but when I put you in an uncomfortable situation, that fight or flight response takes place in the brain, which is what's triggering that nitric oxide production.
Wow.
So you put yourself in that situation, nitric oxide kicks in, you end up flooding your system with nitric oxide, vasodilation takes place. If you do it on a daily basis, you're going to get the benefit of that nitric oxide release the same way you would with any kind of sympathetic trigger.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is there's a much deeper thing taking place here, and I don't think a lot of people who even are familiar with isometrics realize is taking place. And, we're going to nerd out. We're going to nerd out here, buddy.
Let's do it.
But the deeper physiology in all of this is that when your body gets itself in an uncomfortable position, so I tighten that muscle, I'm holding that device for that 2-minute period of time, which is the algorithm, holding it for that 2-minute period of time. What's interesting there is that if you're holding any muscle group at a static level, that muscle naturally wants to spasm because that's uncomfortable. It's unnatural for the muscle to be in a static position because, I mean, if you're unconscious while you're sleeping, why do we move when we sleep?
Yes.
You know, there's no reason to move when you sleep because it's not voluntary. Obviously, I'm not even conscious.
Yeah.
And I'm rolling over and fidgeting during the night because my back's uncomfortable or my knee feels weird or my arm is twitched or like something's happening and I'm unconsciously moving because our body moves towards comfort. When you're doing that, that muscle spasm or what would be a spasm actually triggers a physiological response. And we've talked about the cardiovascular system as a vasodilation with nitric oxide.
Yeah.
But what happens to the cardiovascular system, and you're literally hacking your body back into what it already knows how to do. Like life was meant to live. Like our bodies respond in ways that go towards life.
Yes. Yes.
And if given the right stimulus. And the reality is when we talk about, I say this is just the ultimate biohack for people who subscribe to that word. And it's like, what am I doing? Well, I'm doing an isometric exercise on my arm, which is causing a would-be spasm. Something happens at the end because trigger result. And that's exactly what we're doing with this. Like you're 12 minutes a day, a few times a week, do it every day for that matter, build a habit. There's no negative.
Yeah.
It's like you do this. It doesn't require an incredible amount of concentration. It's not requiring a crazy amount of time. It's particularly beneficial for older people who, for instance, are more sedentary.
Yeah, because they can sit in their chair and
absolutely
do it.
My grandma's not going to do a plank, right? So like you can sit and watch TV and do this or do that. And what I call it, I refer to it as an active meditation. It's taking you to homeostasis. It's literally just helping your cardiovascular system be the best it can be.
Man.
And so the benefit of this is, I mean, obviously you can count the benefits, to be honest with you. You're getting nitric oxide release, that's what we're attempting to do.
Yeah.
And that's the science behind isometrics. We've got so many clinical trials on this through Mayo Clinic, from Johns Hopkins, from the Harvard Health Letter, from McMaster's University, like you name it. Domestic and foreign universities all over the place have done so many studies on isometrics. And we get on a regular basis people calling saying, can I buy 16 of these? Because, can I get a discount? We're doing a research project on isometrics and yours is the best device for actually doing isometrics, because not only is it a controlled biofeedback device, but all of it's being stored because, the data that gets stored on the device gets uploaded onto the app where you're able to track progress.
You track it too. Yeah,
absolutely. Like all of that is being tracked. All of that stuff is being connected. Like it works out. It's just moving you back to where you need to be. Like it's so well studied and documented. You can't Google, and again, Google will get you some pretty ugly stuff. You can't Google what's the negative of isometric exercise because nothing exists.
Nothing exists.
There is no negative to doing an isometric exercise.
I remember like one old physiologist, and I say it like back in physiology class, but he studied all about fascia release, and he was talking about isometric. And when I was reading your website, reading your information, and it stuck out to me. He was saying that he goes, isometrics, he goes, if you can change the fascia, maybe he didn't realize this portion of it, but he goes, isometrics is probably one of the greatest healers that you could possibly do.
And then providing the physiological means to do so.
Exactly right. And it's like, and give you basically the device to tell you how much to press, how long to press.
Absolutely.
And the thing that is a no-brainer is because of, I say it's very entailed. It's a really great device, but it's specific, but it's easy to use. It's not hard to do that. When you say like your grandmother can do it, we do it, but is there an age where somebody would start doing this? Because I know it's healthy for all. Like, could you be in your 20s? You could just young and start doing it.
I mean, the device is available at Zona.com. It is completely for sale. Everything that we've talked about has already been validated through multiple different studies. I do encourage you, go out there. Go to Zona.com. You can pick up one of these devices. We do have a 90-day money back guarantee. So if someone's not getting what they want out of it, I don't want your money.
That's right.
Like, I don't want your money unless you're getting the benefit. But the one thing I will tell you, you're only going to get the benefit if you do the work.
Yep.
That being said, we actually have an offer for your listeners.
With the code Dr. Motley.
Dr. Motley is the code. Just type in Dr. Motley. Now, I've got to ask though, is it Dr. Motley or DOCTOR Motley?
Dr. Motley.
So Dr. Motley is the code we're using, and that saves users $100 off the purchase of the device.
Trust me, get it. I don't just say that. I just met Mark, but I could tell he's a gentle heart, and he's just like, I tell you from my heart, like, I would get this. So pick it up. Use Dr. Motley in the code. And I just want to say thank you, man, for coming out.
I want to thank you for being the first person who've ever described me as gentle.
You may not think, look, you may not